You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years.
I'm Domenick Muoio. I'm the Field Trial and Hunt Test Program Manager. I'm joined here today by Todd Tharp. Todd, you are the chairperson for the Hunting Retriever Club's Rule Change Committee, correct?
Yes, that's them. And I'm also the Running Rules Committee person for Region 4A within the region, as well as the national chairman.
Okay. How long have you been holding those roles with HRC now?
Probably about 15 years, I believe, 14, 15 years. It's been quite a while. I first joined HRC back in 1994, actually, when I had my first dog and got introduced by a friend, actually a obedience trainer that I was working with, said something about, because I said I wanted a duck dog. And she's like, well, hey, we've got this little training group. And then, shortly thereafter, I joined HRC and, here we go, and I went from, getting my feet wet with a first started dog to, being involved in the local club, being involved at the national level, and just, it kind of snowballed from there. But I forget when I became a judge, but I think somewhere in the late 90s, maybe 97, I found my first seminar manual that I had gone to back in 1997 that Philip Freeman taught. A lot of the people from the South will remember Philip Freeman. He was very influential with HRC back in the day.
The more people I talk to, especially ones that are part of EC or field reps, and just hear their stories about how they got into HRC, some of them are by pure accident. Like you just, you thought you wanted a hunting dog, and then you end up going down this whole rabbit hole of the Hunting Retriever Club and running hunt tests, and then you're addicted, and they've got their claws in you, and you couldn't think of a better way to spend your weekends than out at a hunt test.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It went hand in hand a lot with the duck hunting waterfowl hunting that I did, and then this really, I fell in love with HRC when I started running it. I played a couple other games coming along when I first got started, and I had the most fun at every HRC event that I had ever been to. And that's just the path I took, became a judge, just like I said, just, one thing led to another. And, here we are today.
Well, it's nice to have an organization that's kind of, it's run by and so involved with, the average person, and the average person continues to get more and more responsibilities. They want more, they want to be involved more, and then they end up, kind of in a role like you are. They just keep digging into what makes that sport so great, and they really involve themselves in continuing to progress it and make it something that everyone enjoys and continues to grow like it has been.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the sayings that I remember from way back is, at an HRC event, you never meet a stranger. And I think that holds true at 99.9% of all the events I've ever been to. And I've traveled all over the Southeast, all the way to Canada, up to Illinois. And everywhere I go, it's like HRC's this long distance family that, you're always welcome, and, you're always greeted. And it's just a fun organization. And then, another thing I love is, a lot of the clubs get kids involved. I love seeing kids get involved with their dogs, or even, when they first get started, they got mom or dad's dog out there and they're trying to do it. And then, next thing that they've got their own puppy, and, it's a competition within the family. But it's just great to see everybody come together, no matter where you're at, and different parts of the country, even all the way up into Canada. It's the same way. I've got a lot of great Canadian friends, from this organization now that I talk to on a regular basis. So it's a tremendous organization. I mean, I'm very passionate about it, you know, and I tell everybody I bleed HRC. You know, if there's an organization that, you know, I love, it's this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's enjoyable. It's fun. I'll say that. It's always been fun. And, you know, I couldn't think of any other organization that I'd rather be a part of, you know, with my dogs.
Yeah, you know, I definitely don't have the tenure running in the sport that you do, but you know, HRC is one of the things that I spend my weekends doing. I've got my dog, and you know, we've been in it for, well, I don't know, about 3 years now or so. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, everything you're saying is like, yeah, yep. I remember going to my first started test and not knowing anybody there. And after about 5 minutes, someone was like, "Hey, have you run HRC before?" No. Well, here, let me show you. And just, you know, instant friend, just add water. And, you know, it's a really special sport. And I appreciate that side of it. And, you know, I really like being in this job that I'm in because I get to talk with individuals like you and do things like we're doing with this podcast and talk about, you know, some of the backside of it and some of the rule changes that, you know, continue to make the sport what it is and progress it. And so that's kind of the goal for today's podcast, is to talk about some of these rule changes that are going to take effect the the first of 2023, and you know, maybe dive into a little bit of the thought process behind them as well. I know some of them are just syntax and clarification, but there are a couple of changes that probably took a little bit more thought, and I'd love to be able to pick your brain as proxy for the entire committee on how those changes came about. And we could probably also talk a little bit about, you know, how changes are proposed as well for some of the other members who might be listening to this and go, you know, I've got an idea that I think might make HRC better, and how they can get that voice heard and potentially get that idea in effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, our organization, any member in good standing can propose a change, whether it's a rule change or a policy change. And, you know, they basically, you know, write it up and I'll put it on the table. If anybody needs help writing anything or presenting anything, I'm more than happy. My phone number's out there on the website. You know, I'm pretty easily accessible via email, telephone. You know, a lot of times I prefer picking up the phone and have a conversation, but like I said, any member can turn in a proposed change to any rule or any policy that's out there, and the rules get turned in. You know, policies have to be brought by a board member at the national meeting, but a rule proposal can be turned in to their local area running rules rep, and it's a 2-year process basically that it takes, and we're in that process right now for new rules to be proposed, and they have to be turned in to me by April 1st of next year. But like I said, any member can turn in a proposed change. It's a simple form online, and if anybody needs help, go to your local running rules rep first. If they can't help you or they can't answer your questions, then feel free to give me a call or have them call me, or however it works best for you. But you know, that's what, you know, I feel makes our organization so good, is that everybody basically has a voice within our organization, and there's a process for your voice to be heard. You know, because once you write it, sign it, turn it in, you know, it's going to go basically up the chain. You know, it'll go to your running rules rep, then it'll come to me, and then we go sit out at the national meeting and collectively as a committee discuss the proposal that's being presented, because you have to give an explanation of why you think it's a good proposal. We talk about it, we look at it, we kind of analyze what's said, what's the purpose of this change, you know, and if we feel that, you know, the verbiage could be changed a little bit, we make suggestions to the author. The committee cannot change any proposal. All we can do is make suggestions to change to the original author. The original author has to make the change himself or herself, you know, to that particular proposal when they do it. And like I said, anybody can make a proposal, you know, and don't feel like you're out there by yourself, you know, because even if it gets all the way to the committee at the national meeting, we're all going to sit down and discuss it. We spend an entire day discussing every proposal that's turned in, you know, the pros, cons, and can we make it better, or is it good like it sits? So that's kind of a quick, brief process of how it works. And on the website, there is a document there. It's a timeline and it gives you specific dates of when things have to be turned in and who they're to be turned into. So it's and I have all those documents as PDF documents. So if anybody needs them, I can email them directly to them as well. So, the information's out there. It's very easy to access. I think a lot of people don't know where to look. The first place I would suggest is the website. If you need help, talk to your area running rules rep. And if you can't get that help, come to me. I'm here. I've been around for a good amount of time. I can't say I've been around as long as everybody, but I feel that I've got a pretty good understanding of HRC and what happens and how it happens there. So
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good precursor, talking about some of the process, into talking about some of the specifics here, some of the rule changes that are about to take effect. I know there's some documents that were published at the national meeting and things like that. So we'll kind of walk through some of these rule changes that are coming up. We'll probably also talk a little bit about the ones that may have failed also, and just kind of hear the your take on these rule changes. And one of the first changes that are on the list for taking effect this coming year is about the finish triple. So the way I understood it is, previously I think it said something along the lines of it could be up to a triple in a finish test, but it did not specify that it had to be a triple for a finish test. And there were some Sunday afternoon water series that may or may not have seen 3 birds come out of those wingers. Is that about the right thought process there?
Yes, that's correct. It said multiple marks, so that left an open door for less than 3, being 2, and I honestly, I think, with a double mark, we have that at the season level. You're running basically a season test if you're running a double at finish. And I don't think that's fair to the people that train for the finish level. I think, you progress through the program, you get to finish, you should have like a good triple on land, a good triple on water. And, that kind of goes back to, and I know there's weather that can affect things, but you can still scale your test according to your weather, according to your time, and still get a good quality test and judge the dogs to the standard. So you've kind of got to look at the entire big picture of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then, it's like I said, it's a finish level test. So you want to make sure that dog can count the 3, and remember everything. It's a step above seasons. It's not a harder season test. It's a finish test, and that's the way it should be judged and looked at.
Yeah, I think that that's a good explanation for it. I remember people telling me, "Well, yeah, we failed on Saturday. That dog's not quite ready, but we'll come by and see if there's a Sunday afternoon gimme." And they're kind of referring to a nice easy double and maybe a little down the shore blind or something, and just pack up, get out of there, and grab the ribbon on the way out. And I think kind of like what you said, a finish test should be a finish test, and truly judge the dogs to those standards, and not do the dogs a disservice by not allowing them to exhibit the potential and the training that they have.
Yeah, and and they work hard for it, and it should be something that when they get that pass and when they get that finish title, it's something that they can be proud of, and they know they worked for it. It wasn't something, like a training day going out there and collecting a ribbon and collecting the title. It's something that they actually go out and earn. And they know they can feel good about it. Yeah, my dog smashed that test. My dog earned everything that he got. And I mean, and you travel across the country, you run into different terrain. There's a lot of different factors that play into a test, but at the end of the day, the standards are all the same, you know, from one region to another. And that's, that's the way they should be judged, And another big thing that we're doing now, I'll touch on it because it kind of goes hand in hand going with region to region, is that we're working on the seminar manual currently as well to make sure that everything within that manual is matching what is in the current rule book itself. And, when we go back to the national meeting, teach the field reps that, here's the standard that should be across the country, not just, because it varies from region to region slightly. And a big thing that we're working towards is to make sure that when you go to region 1 or you go to region 10 or region 6 or region 4, wherever you go, when you walk up to the line, that test is going to be pretty much the same test on different terrain and judged the same way from one region to the next. And I think that's, a big part of it is, getting everything to be judged to the same standard from one region to another.
Sure. And for anyone who's listening that doesn't know what seminar packet Todd's talking about, that's the basically the documentation that they give when they're instructing judges on how to judge, how to set up tests, the rules on the judging side of it, not just the running side of it. And like he said, even that documentation can be standard, but if the field reps or the people instructing those seminars have different understandings or different interpretations, it could lead to one region having a different standard or setting up different tests than another. And so that's a big deal to kind of have everything standardized and nice and consistent across the board.
Yeah, and also, it's also one thing I've noticed. It's a judges handlers seminar. It's not just for judges. And I would encourage every handler go to a seminar in your region. Go every year. There's one within probably an hour or 2 hours tops from you. Go sit down and listen. Whether you ever have aspirations to be a judge or not, go sit down and listen to the seminar. See what the recommendations are. See what they're talking about. See what's being taught. And you ask questions there. You learn a lot from sitting in the seminar, and there's going to be a lot of judges there. There's a perfect opportunity to sit down and play the what if game with a judge or your field rep or your running rules rep that's there. I mean, I know some of them don't like that, but the fact of the matter is that that's how you're going to learn stuff, because a lot of those guys are throughout the region doing it. Like this year, I flew to Illinois to go to a seminar in this past January. And that's the first time I really went outside the Southeast. But I can tell you right now, I'm going to make it a habit of going to a seminar somewhere in the country. I'm going to pick some place to go, and I'm going to go. And I did it in 2 days. I flew up on a Friday and I flew home on a Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't even gone barely 24 hours. And, and it was very reasonable to do.
Yeah.
But I would encourage that very much for any member or anybody that's handling a dog in our game.
Yeah, I actually attended one this past summer, and I do have the intent of going on to judge as well. But I kind of hated the fact that I waited so long to go to one of those seminars. There were a couple of people in there that they didn't want to be judges. Of course, it's great and benefits the sport if you go on to judge as well. But they were there with that purpose in mind to further their understanding of tests, further their understanding what judges are looking for, ask some questions that you don't get the time to ask on a test day. And you learn a lot about even how to train or what you're looking for in a dog when you understand how they're being judged a little bit better than what you can just read in the rule book or read in the test setup for whatever level you're running.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're around other HRC people. Everybody that's a judge, including myself, we started out the same way everybody did. We got our first dog, found out about the organization, went and saw what it was about, trained our first started dog, went and ran season dog, went and ran finished dog, went and ran grand. I mean, it's a progression. You get involved, but at the end of the day, thinking about it, we all started the exact same way. We wanted a dog. We were probably avid waterfowl hunters. And one way or another, we had some indirect or direct person in our lives that introduced us to HRC.
Yep.
So everybody pretty much starts the same way, with the exception of probably Omar, since he started the whole thing. I tell you, speaking of him, there's a great video on our website where Omar goes in depth and talks about how he started the organization and flew back and forth to New York. And, it's I think it's about 25 minutes, maybe a little longer, plus or minus 5 minutes. But anybody out there that haven't watched that, take a half hour out of one of your days, your weekends, sit down and watch that and just listen to what Omar has to say. I've watched it several times over the years, and I recently watched it again here in the last month or so. And I was like, it's just such a good video of him talking about this organization, how it all came to be, why he did what he did. I mean, it's just all I can say is take the time and watch that video. It's really, really good.
Yeah. And that website is hrc.dog, D-O-G. That's the new Hunting Retriever Club's website. If you haven't checked it out, it's pretty nice. It's updated now.
Yeah, we brought it out of the 80s.
Yep.
Or 90s.
Yeah, it was getting up there in age, but it looks good now, and that's where you can find some of that information Todd's referenced. Getting back to some of these rules as well, there's some clarification as well to the season hunt area, and that was kind of done to ensure that you weren't getting like inline tests or too close of marks in these season tests, right?
Yeah, it's basically to keep your hunt areas from overlapping, because even at the season level, you can't expect a seasoned dog if you've got overlapping areas, for that dog to be able to distinguish. He's a younger dog, doesn't have the experience, so you want it clearly defined, that you've got two distinct areas for that seasoned retriever that he's supposed to be in. He gets to the hunt area, he starts breaking down the hunt, and then he gets to that area of the fall, and he goes there. You don't want one mark to influence the other. You want it to be clearly defined for that dog at that level.
Yeah.
Just like the blind not being a part of the marks, it's outside the mark. So there's no influence from any part of a season test on the other. When he's going up there for marking, that's what he's doing, marking and memory. There's no other influence out there. And if you get them too close to the two marks too close, then all of a sudden, the dog could get confused. I mean, some won't, but a lot will. So that's why it's so important to make sure you have clearly defined areas that the dog's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm. And, it's funny because like you said, you don't want that influence there. But one of the rules that was also proposed was the same thing for finished, to prevent, inline marks and distinct hunt areas for finished. And that one actually failed. I'm assuming it had to do with you want to maintain that level of rigor in finished and keep it from being just a bigger season test.
Yeah, and it had gotten, I'd seen some tests where, you'd have three birds on the ground and all three areas were overlapping. And this proposal was trying to get that so there's more separation with your marks, and you're not, because if the dog starts to go out for, his go bird, and halfway there, he sees, one of the memory birds laying on the ground, he turns left or turns right and goes there and picks it up. I mean, you really want to see when that dog leaves the line, ideally, you want to see him continue the straight line to the bird that he's going to pick up and not get distracted by another bird that's already out there on the ground. And a finished dog should be able to do those sorts of things, but it's just they need to have, in my opinion, they need to have clear areas of the fall where the dog is not confused or influenced by anything else. I mean, and I running by another mark, that's fine. That dog should remember he picked up the short bird. Now he's got to go pick up the long bird. That's no problem. He should remember that. We're expecting him to count to three. He should remember where all three of those birds are without too much problem.
Mm-hmm. And some of the other stuff that are changes, I was talking about at the beginning of this episode, some of them are just clarifications, some of them are outdated, and some of them are just syntax. There's a big chunk here, like the finished cripple. While we're talking about finish tests, there was anyone who read the rule book a lot knew that it mentioned tests may duplicate a cripple retrieve, but I haven't been running tests as long as you have, but I've never actually seen one, and that's one of the rules that they took out altogether.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I've been in the organization, I've never seen a simulated cripple set up on any test, and nobody on the current committee, had seen one either. And even some of the people that have been around longer than I have, said they haven't seen it. So I don't know if it was something that was put in and actually never got used, or if back when Omar started, if it was something that they could easily replicate. But, since it wasn't being used, it was more verbiage. So we, or whoever turned it in, proposed to take it out. And there was very little objection to that there, just because, it's just not used. So there was no need to have it in there.
Yeah. Some other changes were the rules used to. It had always been said, once that last bird hits the ground, you're free to release your dog. But in the rules, it technically said that it was on the judge's signal, and so I know that's one of the changes as well that's been put into the rule book, is it no longer says on the judge's signal.
Yeah, all that was removed at all levels, started, seasoned, upland, and finished. Because the judges never told you when to go. It's all like you just said. When the last bird's on the ground, send your dog. Make sure it started. Make sure the bird's on the ground or in the water. So the judges left that in the handler's hand. So that bird was just. It was really irrelevant to the way we run hunt tests and judge hunt tests.
Yeah. Likewise, in the rule book, it used to talk about for a season test, there would be a walk-up, tracking, or quartering test. And I don't know, like you said, if that was something someone put in forever ago with the hopes of it, giving more option, or if it was something that was in there for forever that just never really got used. But now it specifies solely just a walk-up for those season tests.
Yeah, and like the same thing with the cripple. I'd never seen it anywhere other than a walk up season, and then the same thing with the committee. There was nobody. Yeah, there may have been one or two people that had seen a quartering or tracking test, but it wasn't. It was not very many, and that one passed overwhelmingly as well. So now season they're just going to do a walk up. And there's no option for a tracking or a quartering test.
Mm-hmm.
Just another one of those things that didn't appear that it was used, and obviously with the overwhelming vote on it too.
Alan, we both had Dogtra Pathfinder 2s now for a little while. What do you think about yours?
I'm liking mine. One of the things I had the opportunity to now download a map of an area where I did not have service, and I've used it there, and it has worked flawlessly. I love it.
Yeah, I love the crystal clear maps. I love that I never lose reception on my dog's collars anymore. Highly recommended by me as well. Dogtra Pathfinder 2, the official GPS collar partner of UKC.
Now, I know there was another rule that passed recently talking about honor, like the honor dogs and manners and everything with that. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that one? Because I was a little bit confused on what specifically was changed in that rule, and how if it was just a verbiage thing or if it affects you on the honor bucket?
Yeah, it was more of a verbiage thing, and there was more of a, I guess, disagreement, I can say, among judges of whether a dog should be laying down, sitting, or standing. And the argument was, can a dog laying down actually mark the birds that are hitting the ground? There were some that said yes, some that said no. So it was always basically a debate. Should the dog sit? Is it okay if he lays down? So this rule basically says your dog has to either sit or stand on the honor bucket. So that's what it changed. So obviously there was enough votes there that changed that. So your dog's going to be sitting or standing when you're on honor. Your dog will not be able to lay down on the honor anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense, because in my head, I think, if you have a dog laying down, they kind of have an extra step before they can technically break, which might be the difference in you being able to get that quiet sit down on them before they actually break on honor. So that makes a little bit sense. Plus, if it's tall grass and they're laying down, like you said, they can't even see the birds. It's not the same test for a dog that might be standing or sitting.
Yeah. And then, if you're out in the field, what if the working dog goes out there and he's hunting, and then all of a sudden he can't be handled to find the bird. He can't pick the bird up. Now if that dog was laying down, he could potentially have not seen the bird. Now he doesn't even know where to go. So it's basically a cold blind for that dog to go try and pick the bird up. If he handles well and the handler marked the bird, he can get there. But, he's an honor dog. He's the backup basically to the working dog. So if the working dog has a problem, the honor dog can, basically take up in his place and get the job done.
So one of the rules, the ones we've discussed so far may or may not affect people. They may never see a double in a finish test. They probably never were released on a judge's signal. And definitely, if you haven't seen it, and a lot of people in HRC haven't seen a cripple, then that's a null point too. But one of the things that will affect anybody running a season test from 2023 on is that change about the popper. Historically, you walk up to the line whenever you're running the blind, you shoot a popper in the direction of the blind, you put the gun back, and you run your dog, and that's no longer going to be done in season.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about that. I've heard rumors about what the reasoning and rationale is behind it, but what are some of your thoughts?
You like now the new rule, you will not shoot a dry popper at the blind at the season level. Some felt that it helps the dog, points them in the right direction. Honestly, a blind is a blind. Whether you go up there with the gun and shoot it. The only thing that I can see it really affecting a seasoned dog, if you have a judge, which I highly recommend not to do, is running a cold blind before your marks, because that seasoned dog's usually pretty jacked up and excited coming in, and running your walk up, that gets him a little G'd up even more, and running a cold blind after that. I don't think it's a very good idea for a judge to do that to a seasoned dog. Because, one thing, go run your walk up, go run your marks. Now the he's settled down, his mind's, in the game with you, I feel. Then, you get up there and run the blind, because that's all about communication between handler and dog. That's, you guys working together. And you want to give that dog every opportunity to work with you as a handler. And I think it's a big disadvantage of, not getting them warmed up, so to speak. And the popper, in my opinion and thoughts, I don't think it makes a difference. I know some people will debate that with me, and I'd be happy to discuss it. But at the end of the day, it's a blind retrieve. They're not seeing anything marked. If anything, I thought that my feelings was the shot would cause more confusion than not having a shot, because you're out there, you're lining up, you shoulder the gun, you shoot. The dog's thinking, okay, there's a mark out there. Where is it? And how many times you see the dog's head swinging left and right, and it takes the handler a minute or two to calm the dog down, to where he starts to focus and, he starts looking out there straight in front, where he should be, instead of looking around for the bird that you just shot. So I think it simulates a more true blind retrieve, because if you've waterfowl hunted at all, you've got two birds flying in, there's a good chance you can hit two birds with one shot. It does happen. And, he goes and picks up one, and there's a wind blowing or whatever, and that other one blows 50 yards from where the first bird was down. So, yeah, you got to handle it to them. So I think it's better representation of a blind retrieve than standing up there and shooting the air. So I think it's better for the handlers. And
I know
I think it'd be easier for them to train for it as well.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Some of the reasons I had heard, just through the rumor mill and showing up to hunt test was, when that rule was first written, they weren't necessarily using just primer poppers. They were using actual blanks. So when you shot, there's actual wad kind of going out in that direction.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. Also heard, gun safety. A younger handler at a season test might put themselves into a bad situation. It's another opportunity for them to get a gun warning or a violation with having that gun over there at the blind.
Yeah, that's true. I think that was the justification that was given with it. But yeah, it is one more time the handler has to handle a gun, and they do have to be safe with it. At any level, really, when you handle a gun in our organization, you have to, practice gun safety with it. So, there's several reasons for it. And at the end of the day, all the reasons are good reasons for, different individuals, for different reasons. And that's, we're all different. We don't all train the same. We all have different opinions, and I've had several conversations with people that we've agreed to disagree at the end of the conversation. And that's okay. That's fine, because we're not all right, and that's why we have a board of directors and executive committee and all these other people that, collectively as an organization, we make decisions together. And, when the decisions are made, it's because the organization made it, the board of directors made it. And at the end of the day, that's okay. Those are decisions made.
Yeah, and it's funny you talking about not running a cold blind first. The first season test I showed up at on water and land, we ran a cold blind first. No walk up. They both had there was a walkout on land. And first test of the day, nice early in the morning, a little chilly. Was a nice water blind. Not even marks first, and I've got a poodle, so we all know, poodles have their stereotypes. She went out there and did the work just fine and looked good doing it. But, as a young handler walking up with a poodle at a season test and they tell me I'm running a water blind very first thing Saturday morning, I was a little on edge, but
I can imagine. I mean, that's it. Like I said, I think it's very tough for a dog at the season level to walk up and run a cold blind, especially, no walk up, no nothing, and sometimes those dogs don't like to get in the water, especially early morning and it's cold out. They know that water's cold. They don't want to get in it, so it's tough. It's definitely harder running cold blinds, in my opinion.
Very sure. Not to mention your dog distinguishing, are we at a hunt test or are you just walking me up to a pond and we just training today?
Yeah.
I don't get any of the excitement, no popping, no nothing.
Yeah.
So let's see. I know we're about at the end of the rule changes that are coming up.
Yeah.
As far as there was actually proposed a diversion, like removing the diversion bird from season test, and that one ended up failing as well. I'm sure that has to do with maintaining the rigor and quality of what a season test is. It's not just a bigger started test.
Yeah.
Is that about in line with the thought process there?
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, on a diversion, even if your dog switches on a diversion that's seasoned, it's just a markdown. And again, this is my opinion of it. I would be okay if you took the diversion out or you left the diversion in. But if it's left in and your dog switches, I think your dog should fail, because at the end of the day, if you fail your landmarks, your watermarks, your land blind, or your walk up, or your water blind, whichever one I left out, you fail any one of those other tests, because the diversion is a separate test. You fail any one of those other 5 tests, you fail for the day. So why shouldn't your dog fail for switching on the diversion? Because, I mean, it didn't pass that part of the test. It switched. And it's a separate test. So my thought is that, if we leave, if it's left in, I don't know, I think that's been proposed as well, and that hadn't passed. Like, neither one of these have come up, I want to say, at least the last 4 cycles of rule change proposals of either taking it out or making it a fail, and neither one have passed any one of the times that it's been presented. And I already know for sure it's coming up again for this cycle. So it's one of those things that's going to keep getting thrown in there until it changes. And one year, the vote will get swayed one way or the other for one reason or another. So we'll see how it goes. But right now, it remains the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never thought about it the way you put it, being a separate test within that test, and why you get to kind of fail that but still get it kind of as a markdown versus you fail your land blind. It's not, that's the end of your day. Well, you can still show up later if you got another set of marks or something, but you typically won't.
Mm-hmm.
And then something that passed as well, I think it was a verbiage thing, correct me if I'm wrong, was about how the honor dog is excused.
Yeah, the judge will excuse the honor dog, verbally tell the honor dog he's excused, because it didn't explicitly state that in the old book that the judge would excuse the honor dog. So it was always debated. As soon as the dog left the line, a lot of times handlers would get up and walk off quickly with their dog. So the judge wasn't telling them then. Because the dog has to leave the line, but now, the judge when he feels it's comfortable, or she feels it's comfortable that, that honor dog has met the criteria, he'll excuse the honor dog. So it's kind of what's been practiced, but, there was nothing there that specifically said the judge was going to excuse the honor dog, but now it's there. So the judge will excuse the honor dog.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense too, because technically, you're still judged until you're back on lead, and usually after you get off that honor bucket, you got a couple steps to take before you're putting that lead back on. So there's a little bit of room for a dog to make some mistakes in that area, and the judge might be watching that dog run out on that first go bird, and then all of a sudden hear sit real and loud and firm from that honor dog and look over and completely miss whatever that dog was doing. It could have had a controlled break and they missed it. Yeah. And so being able to excuse that dog whenever you're ready to actually judge that honor dog fully is, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that was, and I know, like, when I judge, typically one of us is going to watch the honor dog and one of us is going to watch the working dog. Our eyes are glued on the honor dog, making sure he's sitting, he's not creeping or breaking or doing anything. And then, your co-judge is going to watch the working dog and make sure he's doing the same thing. And then once the birds are down, and that dog leaves, usually the judge that was, at least when I'm judging with him, the judge that was watching the marks, when, he'll look over, we'll kind of look at each other, we good? And that dog, the working dog's already gone. So, then we'll excuse the honor dog at that point. And then, like you said, typically, and I like to put a ribbon on the ground or a flag. There's a specific point where I expect your dog to get back on lead at the finish level. And there's one coming in too there's going to be a ribbon or something where you specifically come on and off lead. And when, like I said, when you're walking out, you could be walking out. And I've seen it happen. Doesn't happen often, but the handler starts walking back to the truck, doesn't put his dog on lead, and all of a sudden Fido decides that he wants to charge out into the field, and then all of a sudden we got a race to one of the memory birds because he's the handler's not looking, the dog keeps looking over his shoulder, he's like, I saw that one, I saw it, and then all of a sudden it doesn't take long, and when they do something like that 9 out of 10 times that handler ain't getting that dog back. I don't care how good a finish retriever is. And I've seen it happen. And he beats the working dog out there to the bird. And then you have the problem of potential dog fight and everything else going on. So put your dog on lead is the best thing I can say to you. I mean, it's just do it. I mean, keep anything from happening. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no brownie points, right? It's like expecting your dog to be steady at started. Just hold the collar.
Yeah, exactly.
Just hold the collar. Don't shoot the gun. You don't get extra points if you do.
Yeah, just put them on and do it. Move on with it. But
I'll put you in the hot seat just a little bit and get your take on something. Interrupted triples.
I'm not a big fan of it. And what
are your thoughts on that?
An interrupted triple is, okay, so all of a sudden you throw one bird, you throw two birds, whatever the case, then you stop or on the blind. Those two marks that you threw, you basically wipe them out and you've just created a handling test. So you can't, and I don't think, at least my thought process, you can't ding a guy for handling to the area of the fall. That dog, you interrupted it and basically told him, no, you're not picking those birds up. You're going to go pick this bird up. So now that dog's got in his mind, I'm not supposed to pick that bird up. So now it becomes, in my thought, it becomes a handling test. And, and then how are you judging mark and memory at that point on the one bird or one or two birds that he does actually go pick up? And then, you've got basically extended memory or like another blind is basically what that bird ends up being. I mean, I don't see any real reason for it. I know there's some judges out there that like it. You come run one of my tests, I will never run it. I promise you that. And I just don't think it's a handling test, in my opinion, at that point. I want to see your dog mark the birds, pick up the birds. Your blind, I promise you, your blind's going to be in the mix at a finish level. Your blind's going to be a tough blind in the mix of your marks. You're going to have an influence on one or two of your marks for that blind. That's all the handling I'm going to need to see. And I just don't think it's what a finished dog should be doing. Yeah, should they be able to do it? Yeah, but to the standard of our testing, I don't think it fits.
Yeah, I've heard one saying I've heard goes something along the lines of a good test doesn't need to be judged.
Exactly.
And it's kind of, if you're putting yourself in a position to actually like make tough decisions as the judge and the dogs aren't separating themselves through their work and it's not apparent, there's usually some extra factors in a test that require some extra judging.
Yeah, and like I said, when you come judge or come run with one of my tests, you're going to have distinct areas of the fall, and 9 out of 10 times you should be able to look out there in the field and get a pretty good idea, because I like to use the terrain. And, I've judged the grant several times. I use the terrain that's there, and if we've got to add brush piles or, do whatever, I want to make it clear and put the test in the handler's hands, if you will. You go up there, it's going to be on you to make that decision to handle your dog. It's not going to be me telling you to handle a dog, because there's going to be distinct areas where your dog should be and where your dog shouldn't be. And I think that's more of what HRC is about, because, we're started for a hunting club. It started as a hunt club. So we want to see the dogs work. I want to see the dogs work. I want to see the dog go out to that hunt area, establish his hunt, and, and just work it out. I'm drawing on the desk like you guys can see me. But anyway, get to the area, let that dog hunt the area. If that dog's getting ready to check out of the area, yeah, get involved. But if he's hunting that area and he's working it out, and he's staying tight to that area and he's there, let the dog work it out. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a dog hunting like he's supposed to be hunting, especially if he's in the right area.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's also some people that tell you if they're in the area of the fall, a quick handle in the area is, I think the rules say it's preferable to an extended hunt or something like that.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And so I've heard guys, turn around to a judge and go, is he in the area? Yep. Okay. Tweet, give that cast, get him on the bird. That way you can get him back to you and go pick up those other memory birds that you've got sitting on the ground somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you said, being able to have those distinct areas allow you to kind of make decisions like that as a handler too, where you're not having to sit there and wonder, well, is he in this area or this area?
Yeah. And it's just, and I think that's the intent of our organization is that, you put something straightforward up there that's easily understood by the handler, easily understood by the dog. And that's what we're testing. It's a hunting scenario. Let the dog hunt, work it out. You guys you're still a team, whether you're running your march, you're running your blind, you're running your diversion, you guys are still a team up there, working together, one way or another. And like you made that point, if you're in the area, you're right there, put them on it. If you see him in there, because a lot of times there could be no wind. There's no scent drifting anywhere. That dog could be within, and I've seen it, the dog could be within 2-3 feet of the bird and just doesn't smell it. And he's on top of it, but you better know where that bird is too, because if you start pushing him away from it, then you're gonna get in trouble. So it's as well as the handler, it's important for them to mark the bird so you can put your dog on it if you have to. So just be aware of that too. I mean, but you're right, put them on it quick. Let's go. And the other thing that does is that dog's memory he's burning memory. The more seconds and time that he spends on that bird trying to pick that one up, his memory is getting longer and longer and longer for those other birds he's got to go back and pick up too. So is it better to stop him right there and now you gain maybe 20, 30 seconds? Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot, but think about the dog. You're only up there for about maybe 2.5, 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes on a long test. You give that dog 30-second advantage by putting him right on it and sending him for the next one. There's 30 seconds of memory that he didn't lose.
Yeah. Not to mention, it's not just 20, 30 seconds of time. It's 20, 30 seconds of that dog putting a nose down and actively searching and thinking about this bird that's right in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's not just a couple of seconds. It's a whole situation for those dogs to be out there looking for a bird.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, well, I know we could probably talk dogs and training and situations and funny stories probably all afternoon.
Yep.
But, we've kind of talked about all the changes that are coming for this 2023 season. You got anything else to add? Any other thoughts? Any other changes on the horizon that are worth mentioning?
Well, as like last year at the national meeting, we passed to reorganize our policy rule book, and we have completed that task. Actually, I got it in the mail yesterday. Everybody can see it here. This is your new 2023 book. Here, there's 3 distinct sections. I'll see if I can find them pretty quick. But, you've got section 1 is HRC policy, and that's all that's there is policy. Then you've got your UKC policy. That's all that's there. And then you go back to section 3. Section 3 is all your running rules. That's the only place you need to go look for running rules to run any of our tests. There's a big general section. There's no more redundancy. You don't have to flip back and forth between, the front of the book and the back of the book to find anything. Basically pages, page 55 to, what was it? page 73. Those are all your running rules right there in one section. They're still shaded just like they were, so it's easy to find. But, this was a project that, came to fruition at the national meeting, and I had a great committee when we did this, and we took out all the duplication that was in there, so there's no repetitiveness. And I'm excited to hear what everybody else thinks about it. I think the book got reorganized in a great fashion, in a great manner, and I think it will help people read it more, which I highly encourage you. If you're running dogs, go look at it. Read your rules. Whether you think you're coming in at started, seasoned, or finished, go read them. If you got questions, reach out to your running rules rep. Reach out to me. There's plenty of us out there that you can talk to, and we'll help you in any way you can. We can. I want more people involved. I love the organization. I've mentioned that before in this, but it's a great tool to have. And just anytime you need anything, I'm here.
Well, I know I appreciate that. I hope listeners kind of appreciate that openness and that invitingness of the Hunting Retriever Club. And if you're looking to get into it, I think you'll come to find a great welcoming community within HRC. But Todd, I appreciate you taking the time today to sit down with us, talk through some of these rules. I know talking about rules and policies is probably not always everyone's top favorite thing to do. So appreciate you doing that and making sure we could get this content out there so our listeners have a better idea of, one, what rules are changing, and two, why they might be changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy. I'll come back on anytime you'd like. We can talk about any training, rules, policy, whatever you would like to, HRC. I'm happy to come on and, help out any way I can.
Well, fantastic. If it gets any colder around by me, I'm probably going to head down to Florida to try to get some training done, because it's about too cold to do any water work now.
Yeah, it's we've been in the 50s a couple nights, but right now we're in that beautiful Florida weather where we go into the 60s at night, and we might hit 80 during the day, and on a warm day it's low 80s, but most of the time we're in the 70s during the day right now. It's beautiful weather, and it's a very dry winter so far. That's the only thing that stinks, so the water is kind of drying up, and it's just real dry down here right now. But other than that, the weather's beautiful.
Yeah, well, I'm jealous.
Well, you're welcome anytime.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you again, Todd. We appreciate you coming on here, and hope everyone is able to walk away with some new knowledge from this conversation.
I hope so too.
Thanks for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and to like and follow UKC Hunting Ops on Facebook and Instagram.